that actually kind of leads into a question I have is, I mean, your fiction obviously is bending the genre a little bit in certain ways, but do you subscribe heavily to the notion that the zombies are kind of the backdrop that propels the story along, and it's the humans that really are the characters, and because you want to see what they're going to do, rather than, you know, just people, undead creatures ripping innards out and chomping down on people.
Right. Well, yeah, as you say, I think unless it's just going to be a spectacle, right? We're going to see feeding frenzies, and again, you can't. I don't think you can sustain that for very long. I mean, even in a traditional zombie film, you know, the feeding frenzy comes at the end, and that's sort of that's what one segment of the fan base looks for, and that's what they crave. But again, the story has to be about something else. And I think Walking Dead is one of the best examples of it being about the survivors. Again, if you choose to go the route that I did with Smart Zombies, I think that's a different direction. I don't know. I don't even know if it's going to be a successful direction. Maybe nobody wants to read about these, but I had fun writing Lucy. I think she's one of my favorite protagonists. And that's taking it in the direction of, okay, they're actually going to be POV characters. We're going to see their side of the story. We're going to feel sympathy for them. That's a different direction. And I suppose there are probably other directions people haven't thought of yet for what to do with it. But as I say, if you're going to do anything extended, whether it's extended for a novel or extended for a long series, you have to have something other than the spectacle.
Absolutely. Does anybody have any questions?
I was going to say, we should
actually, at first I'd like to say I didn't recognize you. It's been, I think it was 2006 or 7. I met you at Rock and Shock, and me and my ex bought Gospel of the Dead. I started reading it, and it was an awesome book, and then she got it in the breakup, so I never got to finish it. And when you're reading the book, I'm not a normal Smart Zombie fan.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the way you write, and it's really good. And my question is, since this is the third book you read for, is there like a progression of like them learning to read, or is it just they read? Okay, see, that's I really like the way you write, so I think I would like to read your books. But it was just kind of like weird when they can articulate that much off the bat. I'd like to have seen the the progression of it. So, but yeah, I really enjoyed the way it was written and everything. And like I said, what I read of it was great.
Well, thank you. And I didn't Rock and Shock was one of the first conventions I went to. And I do mean to go back, especially.
Well, that's where I'm originally from. Me and her went to school here, and we decided to open our business and stay in Pittsburgh. So
awesome. And I would say, I mean, the second book, they're smart, but they're not able to talk yet. Only Truman was mentioned there, but he's not in that scene. Truman's the only one, and again, he teaches himself to read again. So it's, again, I was playing around with the idea of, you know, if you're a zombie, and this is all taking place 12 years after the takeover. If you're a zombie and you've already killed everybody, or they're all barricaded into places, you don't have much to do.
Yeah.
So I assume, and you're still sort of human. So I just thought you'd probably sit around and try to figure stuff out.
I like it because
sort of remember things.
I'm actually I've gotten to the point where I love zombies my whole life, and I've gotten where I'm just think they're too saturated, the market.
Right.
And like even Walking Dead's good, but I couldn't believe I'd ever see a show like that on TV.
Mm-hmm.
But I like that they evolve, like you said, Bub and Big Daddy and everything, and just with the zombies, it's like everything is zombie. Like even maybe some people in the room might get upset when I say this, but even like the last Romero zombie movie was awful. I thought survival. It's like it's just like if the king of zombie movies can't do a good zombie movie, and it's just like everything's saturated. I think that's cool that you're evolving that way, because it's changing it where everything is staying the same of just the same.
Yes,
zombie.
and I do think traditional fans fans of traditional zombies do worry. I mean, again, as you say, we're pleased with the success, and we never thought we'd see a television series about zombies. But I think some people are nervous that is there too much exposure? Is it too mainstream? I suppose.
I shouldn't just say zombies. It's horror in general.
Yeah.
It's extremely mainstream now.
Yeah, I mean, And I suppose zombies look at vampires and think, well, we don't want our zombies to end up like that, right?
Yeah.
We don't
Yeah,
want them
we
to
don't
sparkle.
want them
We
to
don't want the
sparkle,
zombies
yeah.
to sparkle.
No
we
sparkle
really
zombies.
don't. It's wrong enough. But I think about, what's that one commercial? The computer drops and that causes a blackout. And then
Toshiba satellite.
Yeah. I think that's a really good use of the zombie because everybody gets it, right? We get what it's about,
Yeah.
and it's funny, but we only get what it's about because we know what zombies are and how they
I
are
know it's
supposed to
pretty.
take over the world.
It's funny when horror are going into commercials now. Like I saw the Rob Zombie Woolite commercial. I was like, really?
Yeah.
Wow,
Would you
I
consider
haven't
that
seen
selling out? Doing a Woolite commercial?
You know, they're
As
playing-
if he isn't rich enough anyway. He needs to do a Woolite commercial.
Well, I assume the Who is rich enough too, but you
Yeah.
hear their songs on jingles all the time.
Yeah.
But this gentleman's been waiting so patiently.
Oh, sorry. Your question leads into my question actually. Being that like zombies as well as any kind of monsters are just really a mirror of us as humanity, do you think the reason why zombies are so big right now is because as a culture we always think we're more and more introspective as like the 90s and the 80s and the 70s and the 60s and so forth? Is that why you think they're so big right now?
I think they're big right now. I mean, the way I try to describe it is, I think they have some of the natural primal fears that a lot of monsters have. You know, fear of death, fear of being killed, fear of being killed horribly in this way. So they kind of have that as their baseline, and that's why they would appeal, like any monster would appeal. And then I do think certain things about the modern and even the contemporary time are especially well suited to zombies. I think this idea that they have, that's a little different than other zombies, this idea that you're going to become one of them, and you're going to be absorbed into this big group, and you're not really going to have your own individuality or personality anymore. That's beginning to sound to me more like a modern fear. That's not something I think people worried about in the Middle Ages or whatever. But for us today, that does sound like a very contemporary fear, a fear that we'd have even if you're not thinking about zombies, right? We're afraid that our lives lack meaning and direction and purpose. Well, that's a zombie, right? He lacks meaning, direction, and purpose, right? He doesn't have much to do. And so I think in that sense they fit our modern world. And then you start playing, I think the whole, of course, 9/11 played into it, right? We have this fear of mass destruction, this fear of bioterror. I think that fitted the zombies' popularity better than it might a supernatural monster.
Right, so it's almost like anti-populism, but at the same time, it seems like in all the movies they have to band together to defeat the zombies. So it's like we want to be part
Good
of the
point.
group, but we need to be part of the group.
Yep, I think you're absolutely right that there's then some tension and irony built in. Yeah. See,
How's it going?
great, thanks.
So, being the religious studies guy, your history and background based on that, do you think that gives you a good edge on how to create and craft process-wise for the books, both the fiction and nonfiction?
You know, it does in a way. At the same time, something I've worked hard on, and again, I leave it up to you all to think whether I've succeeded. But it's definitely something I've worked on between the first and the third. Is I have to remind myself and restrain myself that when I say this book is going to express certain ideas, I have to restrain that because, I mean, first and foremost, the book has to tell an interesting story. It has to have a compelling plot. It has to have interesting characters. So I have to push myself on those, and still have in the back of my mind, well, look, there's certain images, ideas, concepts that I want as a writer, that I want to work in there, but I don't want to be heavy-handed or overt about them. Now again, I don't know if I've succeeded in that, but it certainly has been something where I've looked very closely, and in rewrites and going over it, I've worked very hard to make sure, first and foremost, that this is a compelling story. So it cuts both ways, right? I know deep down part of me still wants to write a theological essay. It's just, as I indicated to you sort of offhand at the beginning, nobody reads theological essays except me and my handful of colleagues, right? So that's a little frustrating. So I have to move myself out of that genre, out of that urge to talk in that way.
What talking about the essays, it definitely seems like you have a need to get that out of you.
Yeah.
So are you okay with the just your colleagues reading it, or is a part of you hoping, gee, that, because I've done well with the fiction, I've gotten my name out there more, that you can pull in your fiction readers and say, hey, take a look at this. Is it something that you think that, obviously a huge percentage may not enjoy, but is it something that you think that, hey, if I can get 2% or 5% to really get into it, you'd make you fulfilled in some way, or happy, or at least satisfied?
Right. Well, that's something that in a way has been very encouraging about coming to horror conventions. Bizarrely, it's a much more literate group than I'm used to, right? I'm used to regular college students who are not a very literate group. I mean, they're there to perform certain tasks, to get a degree, to get a job. And again, as a teacher or as a person who just likes ideas, that can be kind of, again, frustrating and depressing on a day-to-day basis, that you're talking to a group of people who just aren't interested in what you do or how you do it, and they have no interest in ever doing what you do. So in a way, horror fans, at least fans of literary horror, you've already got a hook with them in that they do like to read things.
Yeah.
Now again, as you said, they may not read exactly the same things, but I would hope, and I do hope, I've never quite understood why certain kinds of writing are intimidating or frustrating to people. So I do hope there would be some hope of a segue or an entree into that. Because I think even in my very narrowly theological works, I was never trying to be obscure, or I was never trying to put things in some complicated, off-putting way that would distance people. So yeah, I think there could be some of that overcoming of that reticence or reluctance.
We've got a little bit more time left. Anybody else have any more questions? I've got a few lingering.
See?
So you've done a couple of historical perspective ones, the history of the dead, zombies in the past, throughout the thing. Do you have a particular period in time that you thought was more favored, more interesting, more fun, something worth writing in, something worth being within the whole mythos of zombies in general?
Is there one historical period that I'm most interested in, or most interested to put the zombies in?
In general.
In general. God, it's funny. I think any of us would hate to live in the Middle Ages. I think people in the Middle Ages hate to live in the Middle Ages, right? I mean, it's nasty, dirty, painful affair. But in the things they wrote, in the handful, the 2% of the population that was literate and could write things, the things they wrote and the way that they looked at the world, I for some reason I do still come back to that. I mean, and it is such a different world than ours, especially religiously and socially, in terms of gender relations. It's just a real. It's hard to believe it ever existed like that. So I guess that would be my short answer. That I find the Middle Ages appalling and fascinating, much like zombies. They're appalling and fascinating too. I don't want to be one, but I can't take my eyes off of them, right?
Well, probably lastly, is there any new projects on the horizon? Anything that you want to talk about? Anything that you'd really like to promote and let people know is coming up or is out right now?
This is the latest. This came out a couple months ago. I'm working on two major projects. One is another zombie novel. Again, fiddling around. In that one, the zombies will not across the board be smarter. There will be some zombies who are smart, and they're kind of leading the stupider ones on rampages. That one, however, will focus on the human survivors. So there's that. Anyway, I'm working on that, and it'll probably be done next year. It probably won't be out until 2013, I guess. I'm working on a nonfiction work, which is more narrowly on what I do on theology. But again, I hope from a more popular perspective. And the cocktail party version of that book is why Christians just should chill out and leave atheists alone and be friends with them and not keep trying to convert them because it's really stupid. and rude kind of way to be to your friends. That's the cocktail party we're gonna have. But I'm gonna have more details to flesh it out for 200 pages. But thank you all so much for coming.
Good, thank you.